Good afternoon, and welcome to day two, session one of our local candidate interviews on WFJA and WWGP Radio, brought to you by Sandhills Broadcasting and Brick Capital Video. We're here in the studio at WFJA, and I'm Linda Smith, and your host for today's Lee County Commissioner candidate interviews. Before we start with our first interview, I remind our listeners that today and tomorrow, both afternoons, these interviews will continue to air on WFJA and WWGP, as well as stream on the WFJA website. Videos of the candidate interviews will post on the WFJA website as well. Candidates for the Lee County Board of Commissioners include Robert Reeves, Democrat, for District 1, John Kirkman, Democrat, for District 2, Kurt Smith, Republican, for District 2, Chuck Baker, Democrat, for District 3, Andre Connect, Republican, for District 3, Larry Doc Odom, Democrat, for District 4, and Taylor Vorbeck, Republican, also for District 4. District 1 Democrat candidate Robert Reeves and District 3 Republican candidate Andre Connect are unable to participate in today's interviews, so we begin our interviews today with Democrat candidate for Lee County Commissioner, District 2, John Kirkman. John, welcome to WFJA and our candidate interviews.
Thank you, Linda. It's a pleasure to be here and be interviewed by you. I was told that I need to start by giving a little background about myself. I'm originally from Greensboro, and I graduated from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. And I spent most of my career outside the state. I worked for several large corporations in the role of labor relations and human resources. With that business background, I feel like that I'm very qualified to help manage the business of Lee County.
All right, so you've already told us a little bit about yourself and your background, but tell me, why are you seeking election to the Lee County Board of Commissioners?
Well, as you're aware, I live in District 2, and frankly, I haven't been satisfied with our current representation. I believe that I can do a better job.
Okay. All right. Local leaders have recently approved incentive packages to bring new industry and business to the local area. What is your opinion on using tax dollars for incentive packages offered from our local government to bring industry and or development to our area?
I think it makes good business sense if the business will bring good paying jobs, will agree to follow the requirements that we establish for them to receive the incentive. John Crumpton, our manager for Lee County, allowed me to meet with him back in in December, and gave me a copy of the current budget. And I was not surprised to find the budget item of $959,000 for incentives. And as John explained it, that's the maximum that they can receive, but they have to be up to date on meeting the measurements that had been agreed on. If not, there are clawbacks where they don't get the full amount but may get some. But what's important is they have to be current on paying their taxes. And I'm not naive enough to believe that some of the recent companies that have come to Lee County with bringing wonderfully paying jobs, spending money in our community, such as Barat Forge, Audets are a couple. And when VinFast was recruited to our area, a great number of incentives were agreed to, even going down to Wilmington Harbor. So incentives are part of what's required, and we're competing with other cities in North Carolina as well as other states and sometimes in other countries.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Let me ask, with all local elections now being partisan elections, there have been comments recently about whether local elected officials should vote in line with political party principles or on their own. Do you feel elected officials should vote along party lines?
Well, as you're aware, Linda, I was chair of the Lee County Democratic Party for 6 years, and we're a big tent party, and we're not going to all agree on every issue. I never tried to tell any office holder how to vote. I didn't like how some of them voted sometimes, but I didn't vote for them in most cases. It was the local citizens, and I think they're, in most cases, voting their conscience.
Okay, thank you. Well, as a Lee County Commissioner, you are involved with the budgeting requests for our Lee County schools. Now, first, what do you see as the role of commissioners in relations to the Lee County Board of Education? And then I'm going to ask you the second part.
Okay. As you're aware, having yourself served on the Board of Education, the board has to prepare their budget and submit it to the county commissioners by about the middle of May. And the commissioners in turn have to approve all of their budgets and adopt them by the end of May. By the end of June. And I am a real fan of public education. I think that our teachers aren't paid as much as they're worth. In fact, back in 19, I rallied with some of the Lee County teachers when they were in Raleigh, asking the legislature to give them a raise. You know, I live in Carolina Trace, and I have some neighbors who are teachers. And unfortunately, they go out of our county because they can get paid in other counties. And that's our loss in a way.
Okay. Well, let me just ask you this. Then keeping teachers in Lee County and not leaving for higher paying jobs in surrounding counties has always been a challenge. And so how can you, as a commissioner, work to keep Lee County competitive with other counties?
Well, you know, I'm pretty knowledgeable about our Board of Education. I know most of the members pretty well. In fact, the chair of the board, Sandra Bowen, lives out in Carolina Trace. She's a neighbor. We need to listen to our employees, our teachers, our principals, our superintendent. We need to give them the tools to educate our children. That's the primary purpose, a good education for our children. And if we can't meet all their needs with money, there may be other areas that they're interested in too that we should address.
Okay, thank you. Well, let me ask you this. A bond referendum passed in the previous election for a sports complex in Lee County. What do you see as the role of commissioners in seeing this project through?
I'm glad you asked me that question. A couple of weeks ago, I read in the Rant an article about the 3 concepts that the commissioners were considering. And the one that had the most support was Concept C. And I liked what they had there, but Concept C did not have one of the critical things that was in Concept A, and that was a destination playground. I'm sure that many of the families that will bringing a child to play in a soccer game or in a baseball game at our new sports arena will also have children that will be more attracted to the playground. I spoke publicly about my concerns at the last commissioners meeting on April 18th, and I was pleased at the end they did what I had recommended and the way I would have voted, which is Concept C with a playground.
All right. All right. Well, let me ask you this. What do you see as the most important issues coming up next term for Lee County Commissioners?
Well, we have a good problem in a way, and that's we're looking at a lot of rapid growth as new companies come in, providing good paying jobs. The good problem is that an influx of new people will require most likely new schools. And the smart thing to do business wise is to designate where they want the schools and to buy the land prior 18 months, 2 years before you actually need to begin building the school. If we wait, the cost will go up. We also have the issue of affordable housing. Yes. And it really concerns me. I'm also active with S3 Housing Connect, which addresses the homeless issue. And what the benefit has been for S3 Housing Connect is to bring together all the different people that have interest in dealing with homelessness, whether it's Family Promise, whether it's the Haven for domestic abuse, or Outreach Mission, Inc., that actually runs a women's shelter and a men's shelter. And what we have done through S3 Housing Connect is form a coalition where we're working together. We've set up 211 numbers so nobody falls through the cracks and they get all of the benefits that they need. There is a shortage of affordable housing. There's no question about that. And I'm really impressed with what Chatham County is doing, and that's helping underwrite new affordable homes to be built. I noticed about 70 were being built in Siler City, and to qualify, the family would have to be below 60% of the prevailing family income average.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you. Well, tell me, what goals do you specifically have for Lee County that can make this an even greater place to live?
You know, I agree with you about this being a great place to live. My wife and I moved here from New Jersey. You know, I was born in Greensboro and I wanted to come back to North Carolina. And we really liked Carolina Trace, and we liked everything that we saw about Lee County, the theater, the community interests. We just enjoyed walking around. We liked it. I think we can do better in a lot of areas, however. And one of them, of course, is dealing with the homelessness issue and affordable housing. But I don't like the disrespect and, in some cases, abuse of the citizens that have an interest. My opponent, when they were redistricting, ran through a plan or choice F for the redistricting. Didn't have any public hearings about it. And he asked when the redistricting was first started for the political breakdown of the proposed districts. That's not permitted under our state law. And recently, he tried to get the Board of Elections to loan the Republican Party voting machines for training purposes. That, of course, was not legal either. So my pledge would be to obey the law, to be ethical, and to tell the truth. And I publicly stated last week that I would be truthful in this campaign, and I believe honesty is the best policy.
Okay.
And I will be as civil as I possibly can in the course of this campaign. But I want to get out and talk to the people and find out what their interests are. And I had a chance to talk to a lot of people at Broadway Our Way last weekend, and it was informative. And of course, within the district that I'm running to represent, District 2, there are a variety of local issues within there, whether it's development, housing development coming to an area, whether it's the concerns that the people in Broadway have with their sewage issues, whether it's in Carolina Trace where they feel like they're being taken advantage of on the water because the provider buys the water from Sanford, raises the price, and charges it to the people there.
Okay. All right, Mr. Kirkman. Let me just see if I know our time is running out, but I want to ask one more question. Many live in Sanford and Lee County because of a safer type community than some larger cities around us. So how much should the commissioners be involved to make sure our policing is always respected and well trained in this community?
Thank you for that question. You know, when I was preparing to run, I've had the opportunity to talk to Sheriff Estes on a few times. And I believe in fully funding and training police officers. And I also feel strongly that they should have to wear, any officer coming in contact with the public should wear a body cam. And I was pleased that Sheriff Estes agrees with that. And he's correct in saying he wants to protect the public, but also his officers. So I don't see a downside to that. They need the funding to recruit new recruits to be on the sheriff's department. He told me it's difficult to get new deputies now, and the entry level pay is an issue. So, you know, higher pay for our teachers, higher pay for our law enforcement officers must be considered. I have a friend who lives in Fayetteville, and he was telling me that the police department there had to make a substantial increase in the starting pay in order to recruit police officers.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, John, we thank you for your time with today's interview, and on behalf of the station, we wish you the best in the upcoming election. And so if you'll just give us a final comment.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure being interviewed by you, Linda. I will remind the voters that early voting starts tomorrow here in Lee County, and there are 2 early voting locations. Right across from the courthouse is one location. The other one is at the McSwain Center. As I went by there today, I was reminded that it starts tomorrow. I'm not facing anyone in a primary, so folks won't have an opportunity to vote for me until October for early voting and November 8th if they wait on election day, and I hope they won't. I think it's everybody's privilege, but also their responsibility to get out and vote, because you'll get what you vote for, or you'll get what you don't vote for.
Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you so very much for sharing your views today with us. And I joined Sand Hills Broadcasting and Brick Capital Video in thanking John Kirkman for talking with us today. And we're going to take a short break. And when we return, we'll talk with District 2 Republican candidate for Commissioner Kirk Smith.